I'm here to talk about evidence of pantheism and the soul and arguments for it. A lot of you don't want to hear arguments, that's fine, go away. Free country. Some of you do, so stick around and find out. There's a lot of emptiness in these rebuttals that I find too. All I heard was incoherence or something like that. That's an empty rebuttal. That's a dismissal fallacy. Your problem of not being able to understand a sentence is not my problem. Tackling the paragraph or sentences that I have is the focus of the rebuttal. It's not a rebuttal if all you have is a two-word sentence. Well, the entire universe, as it stands, is interconnected by space-time. Everybody knows this. On the tiniest of levels, they just wouldn't use the word interconnected. And then beyond that, the entirety of that is interconnected by the quantum field. And then above that, within the space-time, 99.9% of the universe, I'm just going to say 100 because there's no point in not saying it because there's no alternative ever found. 100% of the visible universe, visible, is made of plasma. Now, you're going to say, well, no, there's atoms. No, that's not visible. Inside the sun, not visible. The only thing that's visible is the plasma. It's the radiation coming off the sun. And because photons are a type of plasma, a lot of plasma is just the particles itself, the electrons itself, and then there are some atoms involved as well. It's a state of matter, of course. So, the entirety of the universe is completely materially interconnected. Completely. Complete foundation on the quantum field. Complete foundation on space-time, complete foundation on the fourth state of matter. And the entirety of the universe could be building up from that fourth state of matter towards the liquid, then the gas, and then the solid. A lot of the forces could be met because of this paradigm. Not that they are, they could be. Because of this, the entire universe, as it stands, is completely interconnected through information, materially. And there's no refuting that. Because it stands that the entire universe is eternal, including the material things, which only transform, according to Einstein, to a different thing. And the entirety of it is eternal, including space itself and time itself. That is relative to the divine mythos. The entire section of modern physics, thus, therefore, conclusively, though they don't know it, are pantheists, natural pantheists, naturalist pantheists, at the very bottom level. Because the entirety of what exists is eternal and interconnected. Thus, it is relative, equal to the divine. So to say that the universe is divine is philosophically consistent and true. That is the first argument. Now, is the universe the mind of God? The only thing you have to do is study the origin of consciousness. the biggest problem in science. One of the. So you look into patterns in life in general. You just start with life. At the very bottom of life, you still have consciousness. The most basic forms of consciousness, which is types of pathfinding. There's things that are relative to that. Lots of AI does all AI does pathfinding. And since you have pathfinding at the very bottom of life, the extremes, including DNA was pathfinding to find it to be DNA. Then you have a string of arguments and the evidence that life absorbs, has consciousness, gravitate towards it, on top of one more key element, that it is quantum. And the conclusions and evidence for it being quantum are the very nature of consciousness itself affecting the quantum world. To argue otherwise is to be ignorant of the fact that consciousness affects the quantum world. You don't know about the double slit experiments and all this other stuff. It's like, then go study more. To be Newtonian is to be ignorant of the fact that we have better theories. We just do. So, because of this, because of all of this, consciousness gravitates towards life. Consciousness is therefore quantum. The entire universe is made of quantum, the quantum field. And then layers upon that, space-time, and then more stuff that can be quantum. The entire universe is made out of plasma. You have entire interconnectivity from the bottom up. And so you have a mind for the universe, conclusively. To argue it's not a mind would be very difficult, because a lot of philosophers don't even know what a mind is. They don't. So they refer to the brain, or they try to equate the brain to the mind. Which, by the way, has many of its own problems. Being that the entire universe is made of plasma and it's all entirely interconnected, there is no loss of information anywhere, including a very basic principle of the law of information. Other than, of course, black holes, but that loss is relative, considering the theories that have came out to explain why it's not lost, actually. This information is not abstract. It is completely material, all the way down to the quantum field. That means you are surrounded by things you cannot see that must exist, that do exist because it is necessary for them to exist, and necessary for your existence because you are also a form of information. Material information, not abstract information, not meaningless paper fucking information. You are made up of the same stuff that exists around you, that is all entirely interconnected. Every action you throw out into the world goes on infinitely and makes an effect on the entire world. It makes the smallest of effects. It might be infinitesimally small, but it exists in physics on the sun somehow. It does. You might ask how? No, it just does, because of the incidental knowledge we have that every force that we have in this entirety of the universe has an infinite effect. Just an infinitesimally small effect. Gravity goes out infinitesimally small. It eventually does not barely even affect a particle, but it could affect the quantum field. It incidentally, it does go out infinitely though. Now somebody would say that's a leap. I'm sorry, you're made of forces. It's not a leap. Get over it. And plasma, etc. Being that you are made up of these material things, incidentally, you also have an artificial soul. And what is that? Which is what Aaron Ra would probably say to me. They thought it was the wind. Yeah, if you go further back, they thought it was the sun too. The sun is made of plasma. Your entire body has plasma. Your soul is that plasma. Would be a naturalist argument for the soul. Your soul is the plasma that contains the entirety of the information of your body, and the plasma in your brain contains the entire information of your brain. If you were to able to take the plasma from your brain, you could map your brain perfectly. The plasma mirrors your brain perfectly. So the entirety of what is considered the soul is the plasma. The aura is the magnetic field around the body. Somebody would say, well, I mean, can't plasma be? It can't. Actually, it cannot be destroyed. Because of this, when the body decays, the cells that die, the plasma still has your fucking mark on it, does it not? And that mark is left on the earth. What it does, I don't know, but it does exist, and it is you. It is a part of you. It has the literal mirror of your brain, so it is you. In every respect, if you are the ones who believe that the mind is the brain, I'm sorry, you have a twin, and that happens to be your soul. Or your plasma soul. There could be another soul, I don't know. But there's the evidence for a material type of soul that roams, perhaps, that does all kinds of things, perhaps, or it just doesn't. But either way, it exists materially. Its impression exists. It's not ecto. It's like just space plasma, which is like what the entirety of the universe is made out of. That imprint is interesting, nonetheless. But my point because of this, everything that you know about that is all around you, the majority of the universe that exists around you, you do not see. The majority of your world, the atoms in my room, all the material things in here, I do not see. A lot of them. 99% of them I don't see. And that goes with, and a lot of people would say, well, air, duh. It's like, no, but also plasma. You do not even feel plasma. And so, what science is revealing onto us is we're surrounded by things we could not know or did not know, like completely. Much like supernatural things. Without the instruments and the methods of science and physics, and even the methods of philosophy, which would lead to the methods of science, we wouldn't know this. But because we do know this, it reveals something else. Even if our ancestors were completely ignorant about all this shit, the oldest of the oldest ancestors, their intuition about the interconnectivity of things, about nature, it being divine. Yes, the oldest religion is about nature. About their own existence, about their own transformations, is right. Their intuitions, which philosophies denied us, was right. And intuition itself is a source of knowledge. It's a source of ignorance, but it's also a source of knowledge. Lots of people have intuitions about death, intuitions about families who died. I can explain one thing. It might not relate to you whatsoever. A lot of skeptics, it does not. The night my father died, 7 years ago, the very night he died, is the very night I dreamed that he died. The very morning I woke up, it was 8 o'clock, or was it 7? It's the day I found out that my father died when I was in the Navy. I had a Red Cross slip. It was the intuition that he had died. Which, arguably, one would say, well, that might be evidence for you, but it's not evidence for me. Congratulations. Have you stumbled across statistics? Because if you stumble across the statistics of people's intuition about family deaths, then that is evidence for you, and your willingness to believe them is based on your own stubbornness, your willingness not to believe them, should I say. Because at the time, I was into philosophy, questioning everything that I knew. And the statistics alone show the evidence of life after death. Somebody's going to say, no, it doesn't. Well, you're arguing for no reason. They're there. You're not going to, your words are not going to stop them from being there. Just because you don't want people to be Christian or whatever, your words are not going to stop them from being there. And I'm not Christian, I'm a pantheist. But your anti-religious demeanor or your skepticism will not stop that from happening. Will not stop the reports from near-death experiences coming in. Atheists have near-death experiences too. If you eliminated all the religions in the world, they will probably still have near-death experiences. The report of that doesn't make it true doesn't stop the statistic from being there 1,000 years in the future. And so, the evidence that there is life after death is strong, actually, along with the fact that there is a foundation, a material foundation for it. There are near-death experience reports. There are these intuition accounts. And there are other reports, but those reports are maybe less valid. And if the argument's case is all you have is testimony, I'm sorry, but the majority of science is consensus. Testimony with testable things. Some of these things are testable. And they are inhumanely testable. To test for reincarnation, what would you have to do? You would have to kill people. So we don't do it. Because as bad as the human race is, you wouldn't kill people to find out if there's reincarnation. People have been killed for money, for many things. But killing people for reincarnation is almost as bad or worse than killing them for no reason. And hardly anybody's been killed for no reason. Because luckily, the majority of people who are intelligent, the majority of people who are smart enough to even engage in philosophy, know and have empathy for the human race. Luckily. So in some cases, yes, I do say I don't know. But I'm not an I don't know philosopher. I do not stop at the I don't know. A lot of philosophers argue, well, I don't know. It's like, well, do your research. Do your research. Because if you've researched something long enough and hard enough, you find enough academics, you find enough science, you find enough material evidence, you will believe it, just like you believe science. You will find yourself to not be much different than a naturalist. Not much different. Because the defining property between a naturalist and somebody who's religious is necessarily the lack of faith a naturalist has. But the defining property between a pantheist who is a natural pantheist and a naturalist is necessarily almost what evidence they know. The universe is the mind of God. The universe hasn't told me so. I don't know. But the universe is worthy of being called God. The sun gives the earth life. Gives birth all of life on earth. The earliest accounts of religions report this. The sun has no eyes, ears, or mouth. But it's worthy of being called a god. To say that the sun has no mind might be assuming. The sun is, however, a body that is humongous, way huge. It might have no brain, but it definitely contains the components to quantify a mind. It contains the components to be a quantum computer, and there's arguments for this in science as we speak. So the sun speaks to the earth without a mouth through its rays. And just as material things live forever, so do we. Because we aren't just cells. And to think we are forgets the capability of the human race and demeans it entirely. It is not coming from a place of humility that I say that the human race is divine. It is definitely a place of ego, not out of humility. But it's not wrong, because the universe is divine. It's not wrong because the universe, again, is divine. Understanding these simple truths is everything to pantheism. God is more than we can write in characteristics, makeup, and religions. The universe is about that. Almost that. Which is why it's the closest thing to what we physically have to call God. Is there other realms? I don't know. I don't know many things. But I do know I have the tools that God has given me, i.e., the universe, to look at it, to know it. Even at the scrutiny of the methods of philosophy, some methods in extreme skepticism. If you want to say that we don't know anything for certain, that's an argument, and it's quite necessarily not worth anything because of the usefulness and the utility of the things that we do know. There's no utility in knowing that we don't know anything with absolute certainty. Because that's not how we live our lives, and that's not what we believe. We don't drown ourselves in uselessness. And so, having not seen heaven, having not experienced hell, having not seen any of the myths of man, I believe in the other side. Because I can. Because it makes me happy. Because of all that I already know and proven and shown, I don't need to be a skeptic. Because its utility is wasted. It's not useful except for believing in not believing in nonsense. That's its utility, but it gains nothing. There's no profit in it. It makes nothing. It creates nothing. It does nothing, which is the claims against faith. What's the point of faith if your prayers do nothing? What's the point of skepticism if it does nothing? Would be my rebuttal to being a skeptic. Everybody is a skeptic, but a skeptic of unnatural proportions. If anything, it kills curiosity about the unknown, kills curiosity about the divine, kills curiosity about these things. You have to be a skeptic, but you don't have to be an extreme skeptic. And that's all that I wanted to say here.